So um, what is a graduate school essay? And you touched on a lot of really important subjects and topics there. The idea of fit, the idea of research. Uh, right here toward the end, the one that kind of stuck in my head was when you get rejection letters, something that's important to remember there. And this is something that I have a discussion with a lot of graduate applicants is what happens when you get a rejection letter. So unlike an undergraduate student, when you get a rejection letter, oftentimes those rejection letters or the rejections are a matter of a student not meeting the standards, not meeting academic standards or a grade level or something like that. At the graduate level, it's a lot different. It's a lot trickier. It's oftentimes, we were talking earlier about dating apps and matching a student with a graduate program oftentimes is similar to that, because a graduate school might be looking for a particular profile in a candidate, and a graduate student is going to be looking for a particular profile in the institution. And what they're trying to do is match it up together. When I was applying for graduate school, I remember initially getting rejection letters, and it kind of, it hurt my ego a little bit, but you learn a little bit more and you realize, no, there's a reason that these things are happening. So that's just something to remember. But today we're going to talk about I want to focus on the graduate school essay. So what is a graduate school essay? We'll go to the next slide, please. It's similar to an undergraduate essay. Next slide. But it's different. Okay, next slide. They come under different names. There's a graduate school application essay. It could be called a letter of intent, a personal statement, a statement of purpose. They all may be a little bit different, but essentially they are the same thing. So it's a statement that the student is making about their intention, about why they want to study at an institution. Next slide, please. So there's these are the three fundamental points that you want to answer in an essay. Number one, what do you want to study in graduate school? That's the number one. Number two, why do you want to study this? And number three, why is the selected school the best choice to study this program? This is essentially what these program heads, the chairs, the faculty, the committee members that are making these decisions, this is what they want to know. Next slide, please. What you want to focus on, though, is your academic and professional goals. And this is the thing I think that really makes the graduate school essay different from an undergraduate essay. Undergraduate essays could be a lot more narrative in nature. They could be a lot more about your history and stories and how you overcame challenges and things like that, where the graduate school essay really wants to be more focused on why you want to study this thing. How is it going to prepare you for a profession that you want to study? In that process, obviously, one of the first things that you want to consider is who is reading the essay. You got to consider your audience. You want to know your audience. So are you writing this essay for an admissions committee, for an admissions counselor? Is it somebody in the admissions office that's making this decision? In some institutions, that may be the case, but in many institutions, it is not made by someone in the admissions office. That's usually the process for undergraduate students. At the graduate level, it's often faculty that are making the decision. So the teachers that you're going to be working with are making these decisions. It could be a program director. It could be the head of the academic program that you're applying to. If you're applying for, I don't know, a Master of Business Administration, it could be the head of the MBA program at the university you're applying that makes the decision themselves. But it could be a committee. It could be a group of faculty members. I've worked as both an administrator and a faculty member, and I've sat in a boardroom with a stack of applications, and we literally will look through those applications. We look at them one by one. In some cases, somebody that's making a decision or may even have a say in a decision. It could be an alumni. It could be somebody that's related to the university, that's a former graduate of the university, and so it's important to know your audience. How do you get to know your audience? You do your research, do your homework, get to know the institution. What is the institution about? Where is it located? What's the history behind it? Get to know a little bit about it. You want to dig a little deeper, get to know the department. So if you're studying, again, let's talk about, let's say, an MBA program. Is it a program that's considered a more of a general program? Do they have specialties in the program? A particular MBA program like the one at Arkansas Tech, you have options. You can study as the program as a general program. You can study it with an emphasis in digital marketing, or you can do it with an emphasis in data analysis. So you want to understand. And then within that department, within the program, get to know the faculty members a little bit, the staff. Who are they? Where are they from? This is where you do a little bit of your research in LinkedIn. And a lot of university websites will have information about staff members and faculty members. It'll give a brief bio. It'll tell you what their background is. At the university, at Arkansas Tech, on our website, it'll literally have a list with faculty members in terms of what classes they're assigned to teach. It'll tell you where they got their degrees. Those are all little clues into who they are and how they might think, and what they might be looking for. Finally, a very important thing, you're applying for a graduate level. So they might not be looking specifically like at the undergraduate level, they want to see good writing because they want to see that the student has the skills, the mechanical skills to be able to represent an idea well. At the graduate level, they just assume that you have that. And if you present something that is not well written, that's not well constructed, that doesn't have good vocabulary, they're going to take that as, this guy either didn't do very well at the undergraduate level before they came here, this particular applicant, or they're being lazy. And you don't want that consideration to come up in the committee in either way. When you write these things, you want to make them accessible. That's very important. So, you don't want to read, you don't want to write things that are too heady or have a lot of theory into them. You want to make sure they know that you know what you're talking about, but it needs to be accessible, because if it's somebody that doesn't understand, if there's a faculty member that understands the intricacies of a theory that you want to touch on, that's perfect. But if there's a staff member, for example, that doesn't have a background in that particular area, they may perceive it as it could be a little bit arrogant maybe, or I don't know, it could be perceived different ways. So accessibility is important. And then staying focused. A lot of times when people write, they want to, they feel that, and this is an opportunity for you to show the committee, the faculty, who you are. And we are all extremely complicated people, and by the time you get to graduate school level age, you probably have a long history and a lot of stories, and you want to share a lot of that, but you don't always have the opportunity. If you're writing something in 4,000 characters, it's going to have to be limited. So you want to stay focused. That's why initially I made the point about staying focused on the professional and academic topics. Next slide, please. So again, what this document is, this is an opportunity to show what sets you apart, what makes you you and a great candidate for this particular program. So you want to give a sense of yourself. You want to talk, touch on your academic achievements within reason. You don't want to say, oh, I was student of the year when I was in 5th grade, and in 7th grade they gave me an award for the spelling bee. Just try and stay focused on your undergraduate education, on those academic achievement. Any professional achievements as well, because we know we do have some people that apply to graduate school that have had some professional experience under their belt. Some have had a lot of experience professionally under their belt before they apply for a graduate program. So that's something that you might want to consider sharing. And then you want to share some of your professional ambitions. What is it that you want to do with this particular education? You're applying for the sociology program at Northeastern University in Boston. What is it about that particular program at that university that's going to prepare you the best to go on that way into the direction of what you want to study in that field? Additionally, you want to talk about your personal qualities, some of your values. You don't want to get too personal. You want to give them a sense of you as a strong candidate for the program, but don't get too personal. It's not this isn't an application for I don't know, a marriage or something like that. This is an academic program that you're applying to, and remember that. You want to share your passion for the field of study. What is it about sociology, or what is it about business, or what is it about computer science that really motivates you? Why do you want to do that? What is your motivation? Why do you want to study this? I want to study electrical engineering at the graduate level because I want to be able to help build a grid for my country, or I want to study higher education administration because I want to come back to my country and help establish a new educational system at the higher level. And then how would you like to contribute? And again, these things sort of go hand in hand. Once you can complete your education, what are you going to do with it? How do you plan to contribute? It's understandable that you may not have a real clear idea, but I'm going to guess that most people have an understanding. If they want to study psychology, there's a reason behind that. They want to do something with that. If they want to study physics or mathematics, there's a reason that they want to study that. Be careful not to use jargon, or not get too technical. Jargon essentially is language that's very, very specific to a particular area. You find that a lot in like the computer industry in technical terms. Oftentimes these words are very, very specific to a very specific field, and again, you may be speaking over somebody's head. They might not understand what you're saying. So try not to use jargon. Or use terms that are too technical again. Get into really specific theories about certain things. That may be speaking over people's heads. And then, we go back to the original point that we made earlier: is try and be accessible. You want people to understand what you're talking about. You want to be understood. This is your opportunity to show who you are, but you want to make sure that people get a clear understanding, and part of that is how you represent yourself and the language that you use. Next slide, please. You want to show, don't tell. This is an important element in these type of essays. It's kind of like a resume or a cover letter. When you're applying for a job, you can tell all you want, but you want to show. You want to show specifically what is it. So if you're going to tell a story, your story should reflect an interest. Again, it should reflect your interest in what you want to study in the program. You want to keep it brief, and you want to be specific. You want to stay focused. Stories are a great way, really great way to share about you personally, who you are as a person, as an academic, as a professional. Keep stories brief. Make sure that they relate to the topic. You don't want to start going too far into a certain direction that sort of takes you from that certain point. And then again, remember that these stories are about you. They need to be about you specifically and how they relate to you. Next slide, please. So some of the do's and the don'ts. So these are the do's. These are the things that you want to aim to do when you write the essay. You want to know who's going to read it. So know your audience, get to know your audience as much as you can. Remember, research the school, research the department, the college within the university, research the academic program, and get to know who's teaching, who are going to be the teachers in this program. What is that's, you know, when you look into that, it's going to give you an understanding and an insight into how the program is run, by who it's run, their background. It's going to tell you a lot about the program. Be passionate. You know, you're pursuing something that requires a lot of passion and dedication, and make sure that your essay reflects that you have a real commitment because you have this motivation. The essay should clearly state that. Share examples, you know, so tell us what, how, where, why, those things. And again, try and be specific and focused. That is sort of the meat of the essay. That is what drives the essay. Be specific and relevant. Make sure that the examples that you use relate to what you talk about. You know, if you're trying to make a point about you know, your interest in mechanical engineering, and you're talking about the raisins that your grandma used to put in the pancakes that she made when you were a little kid, you know, that might be a stretch. There might be a connection there, but you need to try and stay focused and specific. Be clear, and again, this is also, again, it's part about being accessible, is being clear. Don't talk around things. Don't try and insinuate things. Be direct. Be clear. It's going to make your writing better. Explain abnormalities. You know, so if, for example, there is a gap in your academic background, you know, maybe, you know, as an undergraduate, you studied 3 years and then you left academia for 4 or 5 years and you didn't return to complete it until then. You know, discuss it. Say, you know, after my junior year in college, I left to take care of some personal responsibilities with my family, or I left to travel the world, or I joined a military group or something like that. But talk a little bit, touch on those things, because it's a way for you to explain some of those gaps in activity, maybe. And then when you write, you want to rewrite, you want to edit, you want to edit again, you want to edit, you want to continue making it better. One of the best pieces of advice that I ever got, and I use it today, even when I'm writing, it doesn't have to be a graduate essay. Anytime you're writing something important, it's really great to have other eyes look at it. You know, talk to somebody that you trust. It could be a professor, it could be a colleague, it could be you know, a family member that has the right skill. You want to make sure it's somebody that's a good writer, but have them take a look at it, and you know, have them go give it a go through with a red pen, and you know, cut it and make changes and recommendations and revise, and you know, and then when you take a look at it, you can take that advice and adapt it or not. But it's important that you get some feedback. That's a really important part of it. Some of the don'ts, these are things that I would try to avoid. You know, I would really avoid volunteering damaging information. So if you know, at some point you were expelled from an institution for having bad grades, the chances are the institution is going to figure it out. These things come up in transcripts, things like that, but don't volunteer it. You know, anything that's going to make you look bad, don't volunteer the information. Don't be repetitive. So, you know, again, that's why the writing, maybe before you write, make an outline, some sort of note system that can kind of map out this essay for you, and you can take a look at it, so that the points that you're making are consequential in some way, that they're supporting each other, and that you're not repeating them. Repetition, it just feels lazy and sloppy, and you don't want to do that. Stay positive. You do not want to give off a negative vibe. Even if you feel very strongly about something, that or disagree strongly with something, try and keep a positive perspective on it. Try and put a positive perspective on, or spin on, what you're trying to say. Don't be controversial. That's something that's really, really sticky. When I was younger, and when I was a young student as an undergrad, I learned that the hard way, that when I was writing some of these things, I got into certain discussions about politics that maybe I shouldn't have. You never know who's on the committee, and what they think necessarily, or what they believe. Talking about things like politics or religion can be sticky. So I would recommend staying away from those things. Don't be gimmicky. And if you're not familiar with the word gimmick is something that's superficial, that's like a fad or a trend, something that has a very limited shelf life, that might get somebody's attention very quick and then just fades away. This kind of, being gimmicky is the opposite of being substantive, of making your information, clear and passionate, focused on what you're saying. A gimmick is something that's gonna fade very quickly. So you don't want that. You don't want to be flowery either. I think people oftentimes, especially when they're trying to show off their writing skills, they start using $15 words when you can use a $2 word that's going to do the job really easily and maybe more clearly. Stick to the $2 word. Don't make it. This isn't a poetry book. This isn't unless it's a sample for a writing program or something like that. You don't want to turn that in. It needs to be about the purpose of applying to graduate school. It doesn't need to be flowery. It doesn't need to be poetic. It just needs to capture what it's trying to deliver. And that's the message of, why do you want to go to school? Why do you want to study there? And why this particular school is the right choice for you. And then finally, this is probably the biggest crime that you can commit at any academic institution. It's a pretty bad one. Do not copy or plagiarize. Plagiarize means to take credit for somebody else's work, specifically writing or academic work. And it can be very tricky, because oftentimes we might use content from the web, or from books or magazines, publications and journals, and we read it, we know it resonated with us, we carry it with us, and then we write it down, but we forget that it belonged to somebody else. It's somebody else's idea. Make sure to give people credit. So just try and stay away from copying things and plagiarizing things. Can we go to the next slide, please? So just really briefly about Arkansas Tech University. Again, we have graduate programs. There are 17 graduate programs available at the university, but we are one of the 47 plus 100 universities and colleges in the U.S. So what was said earlier about fit is extremely important. We are not an institution for everybody. We don't have every academic program that everybody wants to study. But if for example, you're looking for an engineering program, or an emergency management program or something like that, we have those programs, and it would be worth your while to kind of spread your wings a little bit. I think one of the challenges that people have when you're in another country is that you get to know a certain number of schools. You get to, people know the big schools, they know the big 100, they know Princeton and Stanford and, Harvard and Columbia and Michigan. But there are a lot of other schools that could make your interest in studying in the US a real possibility. And I highly recommend that. So next slide. Anybody have any questions or comments that they want to share?
Dear Mike, we do have questions. So if you
Okay.
allowed me, I can read the first one.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Okay, the first one is about the drafts. How many drafts in average do we have to write in order to have an excellent final document? I think they are talking about the CV.
Yeah. I think it just depends. I think, you always want to start off with the first draft. The first piece that you write, you really want to consider it a draft. It may end up being the final piece. Chances are it won't. I think that there's always an opportunity to artfully edit things and make things better. And again, that's where feedback from peers and colleagues and friends and family members. I, for example, am extremely blessed that I'm married to an editor. This is what she does professionally. And you might know somebody that does that too. These are really good people to trust with this kind of activity. But start off with one draft. Go through it. It may be a second draft. I don't know. It really depends. You will know when it feels right. It's hard to pinpoint. There's no real exact answer. It could be one draft. It could be 3 or 4. It just depends.
Thank you, Mike. Another question, it says, I was wondering who must I contact in order to have individual consultations? I'm from Mexico City and I would like to get orientation with my city, essays, portfolio, etc. This question is not only for Mike, and this is for Alfredo Ornella. So go ahead,
Yeah.
Alfredo, tell about Education USA.
Thank you, Jackie. Okay, we have Education USA advising centers all over Mexico. In Mexico City, you can find the Education USA Center at the Benjamin Franklin Library, but also you can look for the closest one to you in our Education USA web page. There's an option for search. So you can put where are you located, and it's going to give you the nearest one. Also, you can go to the WordPress page that I gave you already. The link is going to be in the chat. So you can check on the different Education USA centers. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. So you can find us.
If I can kind of piggyback on what Alfredo was saying here, by all means, please use your advisors in the advising network. These are really great resources. They have so much information, and especially for people that are at the very beginning, that are just trying to identify a direction and maybe a handful of institutions that might serve their needs. They can be one of the best resources possible. Once you've kind of narrowed it down to some 5, 10 institutions, the websites are a really good resource. Going to the website, to the university websites, and that's where these other resources that Alfredo shared earlier, gradschools.com. I personally love College Navigator. I think that a lot of that information comes fairly unbiased from the federal government, from reports that the universities and colleges have to submit. So that could be a really good resource. But again, going directly to the schools, and then ultimately going directly to the people at those schools. If you're interested in the University of Michigan, contact the Department of Graduate Admissions at the University of Michigan. Contact the journalism department at the University of Missouri that you want to study at. that you're interested in studying at. And there's always somebody there that can answer some questions. Faculty members in most cases are very, very much active in the part of recruitment, so these are really good people to answer those questions for you.
Thank you very much, Mike. Exactly, Education USA is there for you, so please contact us. Next question is, if a university asks for a statement of purpose, are they asking for a study objectives? These concepts are confusing to the person who asked.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, Jackie?
Of course. What's the difference between a statement of purpose and a study objectives document?
Again, it just depends. It could be the same thing. And this is why it's important to stay in communication with the particular department. When I was applying to graduate school, that is where I got the best information. I would talk to either the graduate admissions office or whoever was running graduate committee or consideration within the department. I would just flat out ask them, what do you want to see in a statement? You want, what does the statement of purpose mean, or the statement of intent? And they often will give you a pretty clear idea. They'll let you know. Like I said earlier in the presentation, oftentimes they are the same thing. So it just depends on what they're looking for. Try and find out what they are looking for. And again, that could be very specific depending on the institution and the university. So try and communicate with them.
Thank you, Mike. Next question is, what's the difference between having a great essay and not having a solid one when applying for a scholarship?
That could be that could make a big difference, make or break, having a great essay, from the times that I've served on committees where we've made decisions on scholarships and admissions, a really great essay and a mediocre essay, especially for graduate applicants, really says more about how much time you spent on it. We understand that there are some bigger challenges for international students because oftentimes you're having to navigate a language that's second, that's not a native language. But you have to put the work in. If you're going to study in the US, your studies are going to be in English. So that needs to be a priority, making sure that it's a well-written essay in English that tells the story accurately, with passion, with motivation, clearly, accurately. That is the difference between a weak essay and a mediocre essay, maybe, and a good, strong essay that could guarantee your admission or a scholarship opportunity, a graduate assistantship. These are the kind of things. They are a reflection of who you are, the same way that your academic grades are.
Thank you, Mike.
Sure.
Those are the questions I had in the Zoom. Let's see,
Okay.
in Facebook, I'm getting one. Let me see the chat. And the questions in Facebook are about the services we can offer students in order to help them in this document process. So in the chat, you can see the resources we have for you, and also you can find the nearest Education USA Center in order to have this free orientation. So that would be all. Thank you, Alfredo. Microphone is for you.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Jackie. Okay, first of all, thank you again, Mike, for this awesome presentation.
My pleasure.
I hope the audience was able to get the essence of this presentation. It was really good, really clear. And if you need further information, again, I am putting the information of contact for Mike in the share screen. Also, it's in the chat. He's the Assistant Director of Admission in the Office of International Admission in Arkansas State University. Also, if you need further information regarding of the Education USA services, you can contact us through the email that it's mexico@educationusa.org. the Facebook from Education USA Mexico, Twitter, Education USA MX, Instagram, Education USA MX, and the WordPress that we gave you previously, and it's also in the chat. Mike, it was an awesome presentation, and thank you very much for being with us today.
Yeah, and let me just quickly just throw one more thing in there. Everything that we talked about in here, anything that I talked about, it's barely scratching the very top of the surface, and there's much more to it. So, you know, try and talk to as many people, get as much information as possible. But thank you for the opportunity. I'm happy to help in any way that I can.
And let's hope to work again soon.
Yeah, it would be my pleasure.
Thank you very much. And thank you all for accompanying us today in this graduate admission session and the do's and don'ts of admission essays. Thank you very much. And let me wish you a great evening.
Thank you. Good night.